close to is the fair school funding formula that was put in place by a bipartisan House committee. It's called the Cupp-Patterson because it was Representative Cupp and Representative Patterson, and it was put in place in the last biennium budget and has been phasing in. It does a few things. It takes a little bit less dependency off of property value and looks a little bit more at the actual cash wealth of a community. So a community like ours that has downtown properties but is poor doesn't get as much aid because of those downtown properties under the old system. We now get more aid when we reflect that the people who live in this community around those downtown properties don't have a lot of money. And so that shift has happened. They've also started costing out what does it actually cost to educate children, and starting to fund the formula that way. And so those are examples of moves toward solving the question. In this current biennium budget, in the House version, there was an update of all of those factors from 2018 values to 2022, so that would be good. But what's not been determined yet, and is so critical for us and others, is what does it cost to educate children in poverty? Because it costs more. And that part of the formula has never been built out. And so the way they've accommodated it is doing something called a guarantee, where they will guarantee that you're not going to get less than you used to while they figure this out. Well, the Senate version of the current bill has taken that out and said, well, we shouldn't be falsely funding. I agree we shouldn't be falsely funding. Figure out what it costs to educate children in poverty. You're actually going to spend more, so you better keep that gate in there until you figure it out. So there's a lot of good work with some tensions happening there. Simultaneously, though, Ohio has made a move we're seeing across the country toward choice. Now, you all know I've been a choice advocate, but I've always been if you take the cash, you take the test. Choice with accountability. The accountability conversations in the choice movement, if you look closely, have vanished. The notion now is no longer people need to have choice to get to high-performing schools. They just need choice, period, full stop. And I've actually heard out of the mouth of one of Ohio's senators, people are allowed to make bad choices. And so, and it's a circular logic. When I say, like, why don't the people who take vouchers have to take the state test? Well, people know good schools when they see it. Well, then why do we have to take tests? Well, somebody has to hold you accountable. Well, but that has even gone away too. Now, look, those tests are mandated by the federal government. People should be able to make choices. And in the Senate version, that voucher would be universal. And so now, instead of fairly funding schools, we're actually saying that people who are currently paying tuition for private and parochial schools because they can afford to do so and have never attended a public school and never intended to attend a public school will now get a voucher to send the child to the school they're already sending the child to. And the evidence of this is that fewer children in poverty are accessing these schools than when the voucher program started years and years ago, where a third of kids in poverty were accessing other opportunities. It's now down to 7%. While the voucher program has wildly expanded, is costing us as taxpayers huge amount of money, and has walked away from a notion that choice should come with accountability, which was always what I was willing to bet. I was willing to bet on choice as long as we all agreed that choice came with accountability. Unfortunately, that's the direction Ohio's gone, and Ohio's not unique here. Which threatens the viability of the more fair funding formula. So it's a really complex question, unfortunately, but it's not gone and it's not solved.
Taking notes on that key piece there and like just thinking through what that means for the future of our children.
Yeah, so the question again for the streaming audience is about the impact of choice in declining enrollment. And so, again, a complex question, so I'll try to give you some perspective of answers. One thing is that Cleveland is still getting smaller, and particularly the children in Cleveland. People are having far fewer children, the census numbers of children are lower, and so we are not going to be the big booming children city for at least a long time until people either decide to start having a lot more kids again, and so we have to face that that's a reality. And then the choice environment in Ohio, and I'll start with charters and then move to, well, let me start with the vouchers. The vouchers that we just talked about has actually had very little long-term impact in my tenure because that number stayed very stable. The number of kids that are taking the vouchers hasn't really changed, and so the relationship with the parochial schools, and they're actually struggling with enrollment also because there's just so far fewer children and there's so many more choices. The more choices is in Ohio's charter environment. And as you know, through the Cleveland Plan, one of the things we fought for was accountability for charter schools. And in a lot of ways, Ohio's improved accountability for charter schools statewide came out of Cleveland. It came out of our work in Cleveland. The problem that has not been solved is a market control strategy. And I say that to say, so in my tenure, we have in my 16 years, we've closed 30 or more K-8 schools and 7 or 8 high schools just in my 16 years. But what happens under law is as soon as I close a school, I must put it up for sale to charter schools who get first dibs, and then they buy them, and then another school opens. Well, if we don't have a market strategy, the district could put itself out of business, particularly in the K-8 space. So the answer is we've got to be really competitive, right, because that we don't have control over that. And I'll give you an example of, we have an offer right now to purchase the Jane Addams building that sits right across the street from Marion Sterling, for it to be repurposed as a charter school, and I cannot legally prevent that from happening. So we've got a challenge in how many schools we need. Now the good news for the district is, since the pandemic, so everybody saw enrollment loss in the pandemic. I mean, when you compare it peers statewide, nationally, our enrollment has rebounded, and it's stayed really stable, like never before. Usually what we have is a peak in September and then a decline all year long. We are peaking in September and then a flat line all year long, and that's 2 years in a row now, and I expect we're going to keep seeing that. The other good news that we're seeing, bad news. So the good news is, for every 3 kids that leave us, it used to be that 2 left us to go to another choice inside of the district, and 1 moved out. So a third would move out, 2/3 would move around. It's exactly the opposite now. For every 3 kids we lose, 1 is going to another choice inside of the community. 2 are actually leaving. So the good news is we're competing. We're not losing a lot of kids to other places inside of the city. The bad news is we're losing people from the city. And this goes to what I've really urged Mayor Bibb, and I think he's really embraced. The gains that we've made, and I think this is important for GCC too, and I think you've activated this. The gains that we have made over the last decade are all gains we made in spite of the fact that poverty has not changed, that lead challenges have not changed, housing challenges have not changed, food security has not changed, safety in our community has not changed, or if it's changed, it's not changed for the better. We did all of those results in spite of the conditions that our kids and families often experience. And if we're going to continue to accelerate, we have to move from an education agenda to a youth agenda, of which education is an important part, but is not responsible for all of the youth experience. People are now leaving, and I know this from people who have talked to me, they're leaving because they don't feel safe. It's not the school. I mean, I've had people come to school and say, well, we're withdrawing and we're moving so-and-so place because I don't feel safe anymore. We've got to change this larger condition if we're going to both keep the kids we have and bring people back. And part of the Say Yes strategy, which will work if we get at this bigger stuff, is people will move here if their mortgage comes with college scholarships, right? If I can say to a family, if you graduate your children through our system, they're going to school tuition free, that's an attractor into a community if the other factors make it worth it. And so we've got real work to do, and that's part of why I'm excited to be at Cogga Community College and still engaged. We have real work to do around the larger youth experience, youth and family experience that enables our families to take advantage of what their schools can offer them.
Thank you. I'm going to wrap this time here. Tom, what's our time? Yes, we definitely should, because we have two really key pieces. GCC, of course, we believe in power as organized people and organized money, and part of having that public strategic relationship is on this timeline. You can see both. It is not just people and money, but it is organized people and money, and why we are really also important of not just summoning our CEO of schools, but also celebrating and thanking them for the work in this type of effort. We don't have these opportunities often. Probably some of the same folks who told you not to, or some of the same folks who should connect with us in terms of this, because we don't believe in permanent enemies or permanent allies. We believe in permanent interests. And in this case, the children, the families in this community was our collective permanent interest, and we have been able to make some permanent change. And so as a product of CMSD prior to your time, but as mom of a student in your time, I personally thank you for your leadership, the tough moments as well as the good moments, and I want to continue to hope that continues to develop in Tri-C. I also want to now invite Keisha Crum, our lead organizer, executive director of GCC, and Robin Johnson, one of our first parent organizer leaders, as well as a current CMSD parent.
Good morning, everyone. CEO Gordan, it's an honor that we have. So we actually are creating what we call the GCC Hero Award. And you are going to be the first person to receive that from our organization. And so me coming to Cleveland in 2020, just before the pandemic hit, and one of the first meetings I had in the pandemic was with you on Zoom. And I think one of your questions was, what was our first impression of you? And I remember having this conversation with a superintendent of schools that had joy in his work. That was very unusual. And then two, that was not deterred because we are slayers of the status quo. And that posture of really wanting to change things you didn't lean back, you leaned in. And I remember thinking, who is this guy? And at that point in my work, had been organizing for about 21 years and in Los Angeles, Seattle-Tacoma area with lots of school districts, and Milwaukee with several superintendents, had never met a superintendent like you. In the sense of really having deep joy and wanting to lean in with people like us that are really the kind of people that push and challenge the status quo. And I thought, this is a superintendent as it should be. And so we did great work during the pandemic because we were looking at testing and vaccinations together. And so thank you just for the short time I was here. And it was great to just build on that legacy. So we're excited to give you the award, but I'm going to let Ms. Robin talk first, and then...
Being a part of the GCC and also getting to know you, Mr. Gordan, have been quite a delight. It's spearheaded my confidence in myself, which has also helped me to guide my children a better way. I have 7 children, and 5 of them have already graduated, so I have 2 children left at home who are already, they're at Tri-C right now, involved in the programs at Tri-C, so can't wait till you get there to see what you're going to do there at Tri-C. And I just look forward to, I don't think this is anything about saying goodbye. This is a continuing relationship. I look forward to what's going to happen in the future. And I just really appreciate being able to be a part of everything.
Thank you.
CO Gordan, if you could come up front. So we are giving you today the GCC Hero Award, and it's a proclamation. And do you want to read it? I think it would be great. Yes.
I'm going to be reading it fresh. I don't even know what it says. So, in recognition of a GCC hero, June 15, 2023, whereas CEO Eric Gordan took calculated risks and created real change for Cleveland students, and whereas he had a real heart for children, and whereas he created higher graduation rates and increased early learning for the children of Cleveland, and whereas as CEO he was genuine, ambitious, and forward-thinking, and whereas he was a co-conspirator, we got the right language, thought partner and ally, and whereas he was recognized as one of the top superintendents in the United States, and whereas he understands in his gut injustice and inequity and works to address these issues in strategic and big ways. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Greater Cleveland Congregations does hereby proclaim on June 15, 2023, that CEO Gordan will forever have our love, respect, and admiration. Thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
I just want to say thank you. You can't have partnerships without partners. And organizing doesn't, as you heard Keisha say, doesn't always have the opportunity, but also doesn't always take the opportunity. And so I just want to say thank you. And, Robin, thank you for your comments, but I've always seen you as an advocate. I mean, that's all I remember is a parent advocate. And Reverend Gibson was saying earlier about just our relationship with parents. And I remember with another mom, one of my team members who was really frustrated because the mom was advocating, and I stopped and said, this is what we want. So, put your big boy pants on and figure it out. Like, wouldn't we be happy if every parent was a Robin? And so I just am very grateful for 12 years of our working relationship, and I look forward to what we're going to do together as we continue. So thank you. And I forget to turn to.
Amen. Again, we are so grateful for your sharing this time with us and the working relationship we have had throughout the years. As we close out, do want to invite you. CEO Gordan talked about the CMSD experience. Want to share with you a couple of things going on here at Shiloh. So we are have taken the challenge to do one of the partner summer experiences. So we have a summer music and arts and mentoring camp here after the CMSD experience from August 31st to August 11th. If you have students who are looking for those music and arts experiences, we will be teaching them drumming and vocals, and we have mentoring and have spoken word here at Shiloh for our students. We also have on this coming Saturday, in honor of Father's Day and Juneteenth, a seminar, a panel discussion on men's mental health and trauma for Black men. And so we invite you here. That is at 11 o'clock as we break every chain, dismantling the myths and stereotypes of mental health and trauma in Black men. So we invite you here, and you're always invited here at Shiloh, 10:30 a.m. on Sunday mornings. But we're so grateful as a member of the strategy team and as a member of this community for the work that you have done. Let us close with a brief word of prayer. Gracious God, we're so excited about the work that not only we have done, but we will continue to do together for the good of our city, for the good of our children, for the future of our community. And so we ask that you continue to guide our feet. We ask you continue to cover Eric Gordan as he moves forward in this next season, that you continue to endow him with creativity and with wisdom, and be with us all as we depart from this place and continue to do your work in the world. This is our prayer. Amen.